r/AskReddit. Redditors of Reddit, what's your personal experience of one man's trash is another man's treasure? My roommate was rich and didn't like her mattress pad and thought it was cheap, so she gave it to me and it changed my life. It was a plush foam pad that improved the horrible bed I had to sleep on. My old car was in great working order but rough around the edges. Was in the process of buying a newer car to replace it. My old man advised me to scrap it, but I kept it around. Fixed it up. Polished. Shined and fettled it until it looked almost new. Spent next to nothing to just time. Then when it came to sell it, a family acquaintance inquired about it but could only afford 75% of the asking price, as she had gone through 3 cars in 6 months buying them off disreputable people. She was going through a tough time, so I sold it for that reduced price. That was nearly 2 years ago and it's still going strong with no faults or repairs needed. Love seeing it still on the road. Especially with a young family. I collect and restore old hand planes for woodworking. Most people just give them to me when they clean out their parents' or grandparents' garage. Most of the time I get them and they look like rusted pieces of garbage, but I can usually get them back looking good as new in a day or two. In the dumpster of a former church, it had been closed for several years and eventually sold to become a nightclub bar restaurant. I found an authentic Tiffany, signed, stained glass window. It had been removed from the church years ago and stored in a wooden crate to protect it. Apparently, the workers threw it in the dumpster, not realizing its beauty and value as a creation of Louis Comfort Tiffany. I live in a very small house in a very rich neighborhood. By comparison, I am basically just trailer trash. These people throw out barely used suede couches worth thousands of dollars and stylized glass tables. Literally got a free working, albeit old, BMW because the guy was too lazy to sell or fix it. All of these rich fuckers' trash is my treasure. A neighbor put a free sign on an Elna sewing machine, circa 1960s. My husband picked it up, fixed a couple of things, and learned how to sew, thanks YouTube. 1 year Cinemark put stickers on their cups. Redeemable for 100 American Airlines FF miles. I went through theaters after movies let out and dug in the trash cans and got enough points for a free trip to Europe. In my hometown there is a really preppy and expensive college. At the end of the spring semester, before the students went home, most would throw away everything they owned at the school and just fly home with a backpack. These people threw away perfect Xboxes, guitars, games, brand name clothes with tags still on them, furniture, fridges, you name it. I guess it was one man's trash, but these idiots were literally throwing away treasure. My elderly neighbor was throwing out a 1950 era stereo console last summer. I salvaged tons of parts from it and used the parts to build a smoking good guitar amplifier. This lady on my old block had her husband one day up and leave her and run off to Europe with a younger woman. Then she spiraled out of control and started dating her 19-year-old son's best friend. The son soon too left and never returned. Fast forward a few months and the house fell into foreclosure. On her sheriff eviction day, she put all her son's and husband's belongings outside and the neighborhood got to take whatever they wanted for free. I scored a bunch of euros and assorted coin collection. A bunch of Xbox games. And skis. I exchanged the euros for dollars and made some money. Sold the skis online and still have the coins and Xbox games. My dog. She has epilepsy and someone paid a lot of money for her and did a lot of the legwork training her. She had some behavioral problems when I got her. But with a little work, she's an amazing pup. Someone literally left her in a garbage can and she was found. And now she's one of the best dogs I've ever owned. My work had a small reference library, I mean really small. Just a little room with some shelves. It was being closed to make space for a server room. Someone sent round an email if anybody wanted a full 12 volume plus 5 supplement edition of the Oxford English Dictionary. It took several trips to take it home. I love it. My uncle helped us move some furniture into our house. And he brought his young son. He was checking out a 3-sided engineering ruler. We gave it to him because my husband gets them all the time at career fairs. My cousin was so excited. and brought it that weekend to a family reunion, and all my other cousins got too stoked and started asking for them. I'm trash, but I'm my girlfriend's treasure. My uncle worked at a local recycling area where you would dump bigger pieces of trash like electronics, furniture, etc. A lot of the furniture devices I used in my first home came either from there or were in some other way ready to be thrown out, like an entire kitchen, living room cupboards, sofas, TVs, lamps, some kitchen utensils, etc. Some things I understood, but with some stuff I couldn't really understand why they would throw it away. Friend of mine stopped an acquaintance from dumping a puppy at the pound, but as she already had several dogs, asked if I wanted to adopt him. Dobby and I have been together for 8 years now, and he's the best little asshole dog I could ask for. To think someone was just going to toss him breaks my heart. Every freaking time I go to the thrift store, antique store, I always find something interesting and neat that some other person donated. It's becoming a real addiction. So MISO instituted a mandatory 1 in, 1 out policy to keep the clutter from getting out of hand. Paging our thrift store hauls. A person I know inherited an old 1991 Taurus show from their late grandfather. It had sat idle for 9 months and wouldn't start, so they planned to scrap it. I matched the scrapper's offer of $100. Took it home and replaced the battery. And what do you know? It starts right up. That was my first car and I still drive it. Man, I love that thing. Was assisting in the retirement process of an officer, cataloging all his effects where he would point out what he would take and the rest to be disposed. Spotted a pocket watch I quite liked and a couple of nice pens, both of which he decided not to take with him. Asked for permission to keep the pocket watch and hang on to the pens for office work. We kept having officers forget to return pens when signing for documents, borrowing them for meetings. Turns out the pocket watch is worth a neat £50, but I'm hanging on to it because it has the badge of the RAF on the front. The pens were given by Lockheed Martin and turned out to be rather high quality ballpoints. I took them with me when I finished my national service. So yeah. Small trinkets that hold some value to me as items from my national service, which the officer was okay with letting me hang on to. I'm a prison librarian. The books we get donated after they get weeded out of other libraries and fail to sell at the fundraiser sales are the world to some of our inmates. 2 of my previous roommates loved to toss spoiled food. And by spoiled they mean slightly abnormal. Chicken has a burn spot. Spoiled. Better toss it. Peanut butter is left open for an hour. Spoiled. Better toss it. Bread is kinda flattened. Spoiled. Better toss it. So I used to hang around when they cook to eat the spoiled food. I used to dumpster dive, wrote about it for In fact, I've found countless video games, steel cases, and even a 60 inches TV in dumpsters that people were just tossing away. Found a PSP at a garage sale and they were selling it for $35. PSP just came out like a year ago and I really wanted one. Asked what was wrong with it. Guy said the screen just turned off after playing it for a few hours. Bought it. Took it home and put it to charge. It came on with no issues. Everything was working. That's when I realized, holy shit, the battery died and he didn't even think it needs to charge. Edit. Fixed some spelling errors. My landlord bought a soul junkie hearse from this guy out in Oregon. Not really abnormal because my landlord has about 20 of them. Thing is, when he got there he immediately recognized that the car wasn't really a hearse but a '59 Cadillac Metro Meteor ambulance. He took it from the guy's place for $3,000 and sold it less than a month later for $50,000 to Sony for some movie they are making. Yes, that movie. Oh man, LPT. Go to your local university at the end of move out day. People leave totally fine stuff everywhere. I moved put of my living area last and scored an awesome desk chair and a TV stand. There were couches and stuff too, but I only took what I needed. The university had all the stuff hauled off a day or two later. My mom bought a granddaughter a small heart necklace from a thrift store because she always asked to either wear the necklace or just look at it, so she bought her one of her own. Got one for $2. The girl never takes it off and it's been 2 years. My GF's ex-husband decided that rather than talk to her, he'd just start spending all his time at work, letting her take care of their son, while he developed a relationship with a coworker. After a while, he admitted the marriage wasn't working, and gave her a list of things she could do to fix it. She did said things, and was then told he never really thought it'd work. So on with the divorce. Whatever. His loss. As a widower, having a second chance with someone truly amazing, caring, and deeply loving is a godsend. Just wish she hadn't had to go through his shit before finding me. A guy was selling an old Xbox One S that was no longer working for $15. He said it wouldn't turn on. I bought it because I thought I knew what could have been wrong with it. I thought it just needed a new power supply brick. I was right. Took it home. Bought the part off Amazon for cheap. Fixed it. And to this day, still have it. Saved me a hell of a lot of money buying the thing new. Cost about $40 total rather than almost $300 new. Used to work at Tim Hortons in high school, and I would take all the donuts home that were going to be thrown away and sell them at school the next day for $1 each. Made decent money doing that. When people complain about being bored because they don't have enough on their to-do list, I think wasted time is some of the best time. Feeling the need to be productive 24/7 must be stressful. Guitar Hero guitars. Check your Goodwills. Lived across the street from the dumpster in my old apartment. That was so fun. One person moved out and decided they didn't want to take their books. All their books. Most hardback and brand new. How to. History. Non-fiction. Fiction. Etc. I pulled out so many books for myself. My friends and family then loaded up a bunch to take to the library and also set as many as I could around the dumpster for other people take. Also a nice, older KitchenAid mixer with all its accessories that needed a new switch. Brand new Tupperware, still had stickers on. Decorative baskets. An antique chair. Also, made friends with the raccoons who would get stuck in the dumpster. I'd put in big sticks for them to crawl out on. Good times. Next door neighbor rolled out an old push mower with a rusted through deck for the trash pickup. I had a mower with a good deck, but the engine had seized up. He watched me as I took the engine off his, put the seized up engine back on his deck, rolled it back out to the road, and proceeded to cut my grass with my newly repaired lawnmower. 2. I have one. A family had a sale to get rid of their worldly goods and satanic temptations because they wanted to renew their faith in God. To each their own. No biggie. I did however walk out of that yard sale with a binder of old MTG cards that paid my student loans off and most of my car. Cost me $25 and they refused to take more money. I felt kinda bad. But they were just dead set on removing this kinda stuff. I just hope they didn't have a college-aged son who didn't know that their cards were sold for peanuts. I've made a very nice living for 18 years and counting by making art from old, recycled license plates. My work has financed multiple other businesses as well as allowed me to pursue an acting career, meet presidents and celebrities, and it all started out because I was trying to impress a girl who was an artist. I was at our local town dump, small town in South Lanarkshire, Scotland, getting rid of some old wooden pallets. As I walked past the skip container they have for smaller electrical items, my eye caught something. Went over to have a closer look. Yes, that is indeed a classic Casio CZ1000 synthesizer from 1984. Sitting there, partly concealed by an old electric lawnmower. Long story short, it was in perfect working order, and I sold it on eBay a week or so later for £100. I had this disgusting preserved paw of some real furry animal lying around my dorm for a couple of semesters and mainly used it as a doorstop and to sometimes maybe gross people out. Anyways, one time the new girlfriend of my roommate was over and her eyes immediately fixated on this goofy half skeletonized piece of shit. Turns out she was a practicing Wicca witch. She asked if she could pick it up and then started caressing it and sucking on the hairy bones. I was like, WTF. and she explained that I had been in possession of one of the last remaining limbs of a great Erdfarkle god who had retreated back into his burrow, Erdschweinhohel, many centuries ago. She was certain that it was capable of casting powerful magic. Sure. Used to do to the scrapyard between classes in college. I found all sorts of neat things that were thrown out. I found a projector for $2. I use it to watch movies outside by the fire. Found an old signal generator from the 60s that I paid $7 for. Found some flat screen TVs that needed capacitors switched out. I paid $15 for the 55-inch and $12 for the 43-inch. Found a few treadmill motors that I paid $5 each for and sold them on eBay for $40 to $70 each. A company one of my friends worked for was upgrading their desktop computers and selling the old ones off. My friend said he thought they were Intel i7 processors and $25 a piece for the complete desktop. I asked immediately if he could get me to. Found a bookshelf sitting on the curb. Rang the owner's doorbell and asked what was wrong with it. Fuck if I'm bringing something with wood into my house. Oh. Nothing. But it doesn't hold my magazines very well. It's a bookshelf. Book. Shelf. Shelf for books. No shit, it doesn't hold your magazines. Can I take it? Sure. If you want. But I don't know what use you'll get out of it. I'm sure I'll find something. Thanks. And now I can house my entire Agatha Christie Dorothy Sayers paperback collection all together in a lovely walnut bookshelf. 8 years ago. Back when I was just a kid in high school. I was about to start my second army in Warhammer 40k. A guy at one of the local stores had a Land Raider, $70 model, that he fucked up gluing together. So he just gave it to me for free. At that point in my life, the most money I'd ever had of my own to spend was about $30 at a time, saving up $10 a month. So getting a $70 model for free was amazing to me. It especially makes me sad, because now $30 can't even get you a basic troop for most armies. Bought an old print in its original frame at a second-hand store for $20. Just because I liked it. Later on, some research showed that I own an original Arthur Rackham print from the turn of the century. Got my current job as night security after the old guy basically real life rage quit. The time shift was fucking up his life. For me, getting into a proper full-time job with benefits and a living wage instead of just barely above minimum unfucked my life. Best thing to happen to me professionally by far. Bought a pile of miscellaneous old broken watches on eBay for $20. Found an old wind-up one from the 1930s in the lot. Turned out to be solid gold. Went to garage sale and found a heavy leather trench coat from Germany. Paid $5 for it. Turns out it's a tank commander's from World War II. Tailored by H. Boss. It's currently sitting on loan at the Canadian National War Museum as part of their static panzer display. The person on our Amethy Soul who got the fancy Eames furniture from someone throwing them out and then sold them for money. Found a ton of new batteries on the ground. The box looked like it had been struggled with and then the person gave up. I picked them up, took them up, and then I went home and put them in my Xbox One S controller and had a great time with my whole box of Duracell batteries that I didn't drop a dime on. I literally found a 100-year-old trash pile behind a local castle. I found gorgeous crystal perfume bottles and silver dishes. My apartment looks like it's out of a different time. Cast iron pan I own. Someone didn't want it and was about to chuck it. I took it out of the trash. It was a little worn. But cast iron can be salvaged easily. You take care of a cast iron pan. It'll take care of you. Brand new, they are not cheap. And if someone wants to toss it, take it out of their hands and take it yourself. Never use soap. Use only minimal water. And season it as needed. It's great. I love my cast iron pan. When I was in college, a friend of mine and I heard about a big screen TV someone had just left on the curb. So we went to check it out and decided to wheel it back to our dorm and see if it worked. His room was on the ground floor so we wouldn't have to drag it up any stairs. We plugged it in and it worked. The only thing that wasn't working was the sound. but we just hooked up a set of speakers and it was fine. So we had this like 60-inch big screen TV that we got for free and used to play Smash Brothers for the rest of the semester. Someone in my apartment complex moved out and left a bunch of broken furniture and misc items by the garbage. One of those items was a guitar with no strings. I cleaned it up and sold it for $900. Some people were throwing out what appeared to be a perfectly fine office chair. It looked more like a gaming chair to be honest, but it was a really nice chair and it didn't look like it had any issues. Took it home and gave it a bit of a scrub to clean it. I've been using it for the past 4 years. Nothing wrong with it at all. Saw a Craigslist ad for a year-old Craftsman bagger lawnmower that would not start. They wanted $200 for it. In jest. I replied to the ad with an offer of $20 saying I would be willing to pay that just to see if I could get it running again. The seller balked at such a low counter offer. I wished him the best on selling a non-running mower for $200 and suggested he contact me if no one buys it. He called me a week later. I paid for it. Took it home. Primed the carburetor and it started right up. I have been using it 5 years now. Dude just did not know how to cold start a lawnmower. I found a John Deere riding mower in the trash. Rich neighborhood. The mower had been pushed 150 yards from the garage to the trash bins and had a pair of jumper cables wrapped around the steering wheel and an empty can of starter fluid spray in the cup holder. The only thing wrong with it was that it needed a new battery. I sold it the next day for $600. I found a working monitor in the trash. I just had to get an adapter for it. Now I have a second monitor. When my late brother was going through chemo, he coped and occupied his time away from work by dumpster diving. On one of his dives, he found an old wicker umbrella stand out on the curb. He brought it home, and my sister-in-law really wanted him to get rid of it. So he gave it to me. He passed away 16 years ago, and I still have that wicker umbrella stand. It's the last present he ever gave me, and I'll never part with it. It's funny to think that someone was just cleaning out some junk from their home, never realizing that they'd wind up giving me a present that I'll always cherish. Years ago my wife and I were moving out of our apartment in a neighborhood with tons of college students. We were young ourselves, and graduating from a futon to a bed in the new place. The futon we were going to toss on moving day had been heavily used for a while. It had stains of all kinds on it. Tons of cat hair semi-embedded in it and was probably twice its original weight due to the skin flakes it had picked up over its 3 years of service. As I was dragging it to the curb, I was approached by a scraggly college kid. He was flabbergasted that I was throwing it out. Hesitatingly, he asked if he could possibly have it. I said yes. He threw it over his shoulder and marched away triumphantly. The summer after my senior year I would go around to businesses and take old electronics out of the trash. I would fix them, clean them and sell them. Made a couple grand to help me get through the summer. My entire job. No kidding. I work in building materials salvage and resale. Useful building materials get tossed in the dump by the tons. Daily. I think my company diverted along the lines of 14 million tons last year alone. What does that cover? Really? Anything from the front door to the back. Doors. Windows. Sinks. Toilets. Cabinets. Lights. We're kinda like a Goodwill for the things you get at Home Depot. We get customers on their way to the dump, and we'll pick out the good stuff so that folks can fix their own houses on the cheap. It's great. And as a veteran dumpster diver, I love it. If you want to get nothing in return, you can like and join my Discord. There is a link in the description.